What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Turn on the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. Russo, I checked. It's been about a month and a week since the last time we went live. There's been a lot going on in our lives. Unfortunately, not a lot of Jet stuff going on other than the Combine up until within the last 2 hours, but we obviously knew that, we have free agency looming. So I think we have a lot to talk about because some Jets news broke in. But how are you doing? It's been so long. I miss talking to you. And I know people are always chopping at the bit for us to post a pod.
I know. It's been I can't believe it's been that long. I feel like it's been a little bit quicker than that, but time flies. I mean,
Yeah.
busy. It's busy right now, right? Work, kids, wife, everything's going crazy. But this is our time, right? We're here. We made it. In the middle of that 2024 season, you and I were kind of commiserating together and saying, it just feels like it ruined everything. Like just left a sour taste and a bad taste in your mouth. Like none of it matters. Off season doesn't matter. Draft doesn't matter. Free agency doesn't matter. Training camp, can't even get excited then. But here I am, man. We're on the precipice of free agency again, and I'm all the way back in. I'm excited for this. This is our time to shine. So I'm feeling good, doing well, man. How are you? How are things in the Zantz household?
things are good. I feel like people know, but we are expecting an additional member in the house. So that's been where a lot of my time is, been going lately. So that's some breaking news there. But we're not going to talk about my personal life. We are going to talk about, the Jets. Obviously, they had some interesting free agents. Morgan Moses is somebody. Sherwood was obviously the big one. But we did get some breaking news from Adam Schefter, like about an hour before we went live, that Sherwood has re-signed with the Jets for 3 years, $45 million with $30 million guaranteed. So essentially, the Jets have him under contract for 2 years, $30 million, 15 per. That's a good deal. I mean, look, you look at it, it looks like a lot for an inside linebacker. But at the same time, we saw so much growth from him. He's 25 years old. I know CR tweeted this out and also put in the Discord. It's just like, these are the kind of players that like you're going to have to pay. And we don't really know what's going to go on with Mosley. And Quincy, I think, only has 1 more year on his deal. So it's good to have someone is going to be your starting linebacker for the next 2 seasons, guaranteed. Mm-hmm. And he's ascending. He's 25 years old. So I like it. I mean, yeah, the price tag is a little bit crazy just because of the position. But you need players on this team. And he might be the guy who's calling the defense. I don't know if that's going to be Quincy's role. I don't know what the deal is with him because potentially they could move him if he really wants his new contract. But what do you think about this deal?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. And I think when you re-sign your homegrown talent that's young and ascending, I think that's obviously a good thing, right? Like, don't overcomplicate it. This is a guy that filled in nicely when CJ Mosley, the quarterback of the defense, the captain of the team, went down with a neck injury and, probably is most likely going to retire. But he filled in nicely. So he's a young ascending player, a converted safety to linebacker. So you have that, hurdle to get over that he did. A former special teamer that then he converts and is playing a, solid middle linebacker spot for the Jets defense. And a 25-year-old homegrown, like you like to see this team keep their own talent, which historically has not been something they've done a very good job at over the last 10 to 15 years. So the money to me, yeah, when you break it down like that, 2 for 30, that's a little bit more than I was expecting. But I think that's kind of just what happens when you get to free agency, when you get to this point, right? You're going to overpay for players like that. I was expecting, Will Parkinson tweeted out, he was more thinking like the 3 for 24, 3 for 30 range. That's what I was kind of thinking too. So when I saw 3 for 45, I was a little taken aback, but you just kind of understand that that's how the market like this goes. So getting a guy like that locked in, who I think could thrive in Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilkes' defense, I think it's good. I think it's better to have a guy that's familiar where it's not another hole to fill out there in free agency, right? And it checks that box. So those were, I think, the 2 guys that everyone in Jets land identified to bring back. One was Jamien Sherwood and 2 was Morgan Moses. So they got half of it done. Let's go get Moses back.
Yeah, so I think Diane Rossini reported like right before this that the Jets are obviously making a conscious effort to bring back Moses, and everybody's all aboard. He's like the king locker room guy. He plays through every injury. It's like everything you want in a guy on your team. And obviously he's like just high character and he performs really well. Obviously he's getting up there in age. I believe he's 34, going on 35. But like it's only probably going to be a short-term commitment. I doubt he's going to get anything more than 3 years. Probably be like 2 years guaranteed. But bring him back, man. I know the Pats are interested in him. I think the Broncos are interested in him. But like, keep him in the building. Like, yes. you already allowed him to walk out once. Like, don't do it again and make him retire at Jet. Like, the whole fan base is like clamoring for this guy to come back. Like, he needs to be back. Like, if he's not, I'm gonna be really disappointed because they have to just basically sign someone like Matt Pert potentially. I know Zach Rosenblatt, friend of the program and obviously of Badlands, has saying that someone to keep an eye on from the tackle spot. But like, he's significantly worse than Morgan Moses. So, like, bring this guy back. I don't know how many times I got to say it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Morgan Moses, and you kind of saw it from when he went to Baltimore and then came back. Like, he's a guy that likes being a Jet, right? He liked it here his first round. He liked it here this season. Like, he wants to be here. He's a good locker room guy. They have 4 out of the 5 offensive line spots solidified with good young talent. Like, so what if your right tackle is a 34-year-old? He's a good leader, good locker room presence. Like, that's the kind of guy that you want. He's a warrior. He's battled through injury. Like, those are the kinds of guys that you want to keep. But it also allows, like, okay, we just talked about Sherwood, normalize, re-signing and re-upping with your homegrown talent. Let's normalize finding like good mid-round linemen that could eventually be starters for you. Like, those are things we talked about it last time. Like, those are things that the Jets used to do. They found guys like Jason Fabini, like Ryan Young, like Randy Thomas, like in, mid to late rounds that ended up being good all offensive linemen starters for them. So we have to get back to that. You have to normalize that. So you have people in the pipeline. So I'd be all for getting like a skipper or a Pert as your 6th or 7th offensive lineman. But let's get Moses back in the building as your solidified right tackle, starting 5 on opening day in September.
Yes, totally agree. And like you said, the hope is that they draft their right tackle in the later rounds as developmental to potentially be his successor. If not, you could eventually get one elsewhere down the road, but have him for the next 2 years. So I want to move it to Fields, because I know there's been a lot of smoke about Justin Fields potentially being interested in playing for the Jets, them having a lot of interest in him. I'm very on board with this. Obviously, he's been a big disappointment since he got into the NFL. So we can't really be so excited. The expectations have to be tempered. But to me, it's the perfect guy to potentially bring in and have a competition with Tyrod Taylor, who we already know the locker room loves. He's obviously under contract, and also pair with like a rookie quarterback. Jordan Travis is probably not going to the team, with no disrespect to him, but I think he's the kind of guy you could tap into an offense that they really haven't had, a running quarterback. I feel like the last time they had a guy who could really move. I mean, Zach could move, but he wasn't doing any design runs. Like, they can actually incorporate that into their offense. And it gives it a dimension that we haven't seen in a long time, probably since Michael Vick when he was washed was a Jet. But I'm all for it. I mean, the price that's being floated out there was like 2 for $20, which is like perfect. Like, that's acceptable money for a backup quarterback who could potentially be your starter. What do you think?
I'm all in on Fields. I tweeted it out earlier today. Like, I've kind of been silent really since our last show. Obviously a lot of things going on, but as we're on the precipice of free agency, I think that's kind of the route that I really would like them to go. I think it's, I labeled it like a dream for me really, but it's also a realistic approach. So I would like them. I think you have Tyrod. I feel good with Tyrod going into the season, but I would like them to pair Fields with him, and you select a 3rd, 4th, 5th round draft pick quarterback that you can kind of bring along slowly and give time. I think that is really the perfect plan. Mm-hmm. When I look bigger picture, I would love for that to expand and for the Jets to draft Tyler Warren at 7, and you go in with this run heavy offense with a quarterback that can run, that can do the read option. You have clear-cut Garrett Wilson as your top option that you're gonna funnel targets to, and then you have Warren and Breece Hall as like your 2A, 2B in terms of targets, and you run that run-heavy offense, to your liking, and that just kind of appears to me like that'd be a recipe to get yourself really ultimately want to go, which is a 9-10 win season. That's on the brink of the playoffs, and that's ultimately where we want to go. I think when you look at it, like Aaron Glenn says, you want to win now. That's the recipe to do it, given the landscape of the NFL free agency, where the Jets are right now. And I think that's kind of the best case scenario. And that's what I'm really rooting for. So like you, man, I'm all in. I think Fields would be a great stopgap. If he turns into something, fantastic. If he doesn't, you kick the can down the road to 2026, and maybe you bring a project guy along.
Yeah. I mean, look, my expectations be tempered. I was a very big Fields fan coming out of Ohio State. I wanted the Jets to take him when they took Zach Wilson, but then obviously it was very clear that they were not going to do that. It basically, since his pro day, we knew that Zach Wilson was going to be a Jet. So I was just like, okay, it is what it is. Like, he's not going to be a Jet. It was the guy I liked, but he has not been successful. I would say overall, he's shown more in terms of, flashes because of his rushing ability. I would say as a passer, it really hasn't been that much better than Zach Wilson. I'd say it's marginally better. But again, the guy has had terrible situations from a coaching standpoint. You finally start to see him really turn it around at the end of 2023 before they decided to move off him in Chicago. I even thought in Pittsburgh last year, he was solid. He wasn't spectacular, but I really thought that he was showing something and some growth. But we've seen Geno Smith, we've seen Sam Darnold, we've seen all these guys who are Jets now who've been cast off and then, essentially have a real career elsewhere. Why can't we be the team that potentially does this with Justin Fields? I mean, like, look, I have no idea if Eggstrand can actually call plays and can develop a quarterback, but like, we are due for a franchise quarterback. We're also due to actually get somebody like this in our favor because it never happens with the Jets. So I think it could be something, but like, again, let's see if he comes here. Let's see what happens. It's interesting with the DK Metcalf news that broke like right before we went live, how that could potentially impact Fields. To me, that signals that Russell Wilson's probably going to come back. But again, you have no idea. But I do want to talk about that contract because Garrett Wilson should be like, give me that contract, and the Jets should hand it to him immediately. Give him $1 more. To me, like, get it done. Like, he should be extended already. Like, I don't even know what they're waiting for. Like,
yeah,
I think Sauce will be extended soon, but like Garrett should be extended. It should already happen. It's like ridiculous that it hasn't.
So what do we have? We have DK to the Steelers for a second rounder, 5-year, $150, $33 million new money average, makes the largest deal in franchise history. So yeah, that's that 5 for $150, that 30, roughly $30 million APY. Like, I think that's right around the neighborhood that Garrett Wilson should be. Yeah, to your point, like $1 more. I think they do need to get this done. I think they should take care of Sauce and take care of Garrett in this offseason. I think you want to solidify that homegrown talent, and G5 and Sauce are stars and they're building blocks to your team. So I think crazy that the Steelers did this. I have a Steelers friend, my buddy Dane, texting me. He's super excited about it, but I think that sets the bar for G5's deal, and I'd love to see that done in the
get it done.
Days.
Like
there's no reason not to, right? You want Garrett's a guy you want to build your team around. We've talked about it ad nauseum on the show across the board. I mean, he's a guy that's I think liked across the board by Jets fans. You won't see many that have a bad thing to say about Garrett Wilson, and he's just one guy that you want to lock up and keep here and keep in green and white for the long haul.
Yes, I totally agree. Another guy that Connor Hughes actually said earlier today that the Jets will have heavy interest in is Javon Holland, safety from the Dolphins. I'm a big fan of his game. The Jets have been terrible in the safety room. No, with all due respect, to guys like Chuck Clark, Ashton Davis, Tony Adams, and whoever else they've tried out there, Jordan Mills. They need to get someone who actually can make some plays. And Javon Holland has shown an ability to actually force some turnovers, and the Jets have desperately needed that. I'm cool with bringing back Ashton as a rotational player on special teams because he actually has been good on special teams. Mm-hmm. But they need someone who forces turnovers. Justin Simmons is also somebody that they report to be interested in, but I would prefer Holland because he's 25 and ascending. Again, not a premier position, so I understand the hesitancy from fans about not overpaying for non-premium positions, but this is something the Jets have needed for so long, and it's a different defense. I mean, I think that Glenn values a safety position a lot more than Saleh. Saleh is more about the defensive line, and obviously, not as much I guess the linebackers in terms of the calls, but I think this defense will be more centered around the secondary, so they really need to get some improvements back there. And I think Holland could be a great addition. I mean, I don't want to shell out, $20 million a year for a safety. He might command that, and I'm a little hesitant, but if it was a little bit less than that, maybe like 15, 16, I would do it in a second. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think you're right. The contract is going to be kind of the key factor there, but I just think that it's obvious the Jets need 2 starting safeties, so it's going to be tough to double dip at both of those and either the draft or free agency. It just seems like you're not going to get 2 starting safeties in free agency. You're not going to get 2 starting safeties in the draft like they did with Jamal Adams and Marcus May. So you're going to have to solidify one spot in free agency and then go get the other in the mid rounds. And I think, our friend Connor Rogers, he's the one that's tweeting that, you can find good ball hawking safeties in the 2nd and 3rd round. So that's kind of what I would expect from them. I do like going with Javon Holland. I think, 25 ball hawk. I like Justin Simmons too. Another guy that just seems to always find the ball. I'm just happy. I would be happy if they just got one of those spots taken care of in free agency. I'm really not particular, not picky about who, but when you factor in what they have to do and the holes they still have to fill in this defense, Sherwood is 1 block to go. You still need that other corner outside, opposite of Sauce. So what are they going to do there? They're going to rely on Stiggers. They're going to re-sign Brandon Eccles. You have to solidify the interior defensive line next to Quinnen. And then you obviously need 2 safeties. So it's going to see what kind of Jenga and, how these pieces fall, how these puzzle pieces work out. But they haven't had a ball hawking safety for a long time, really. I love the idea. And the other point, and to your point, right? I think Glenn's defense, you saw him be a little bit more blitz heavy, a little bit more adaptable to his style and scheme. So I do think you're right that like safety is a more important piece in this, whereas Saleh Ulbrich just kind of relied on the D line to get home, and that's what it was predicated on. So
yeah,
I'm all in.
Think about Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, what they did in
Yes.
that Glenn defense. We need guys like that. They were guys who had a nose for getting the football, and we need that. We weren't seeing it from our corners. I like that you touched on the interior defensive line. I think Poona Ford has been a Badlands favorite for a long time. I'm interested in him. Jonathan Allen, who I think might be a little bit out of their price range. I feel like he's going to be one of the top guys in the market. Milton Williams, I mean, he's probably going to get like 25, like so much money. I don't think that we are any close to him. I don't want to allocate those resources.
Who?
Milton Williams, the guy at the Eagles.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
He's like one of the top free agents.
Yeah.
But they really need to get some big bodies. I think BJ Hill from the Bengals is interesting.
Yep.
He's 30 years old. Probably not going to cost you a lot. He's been really productive for them. I know. Look at the Bengals defense from last year. You're like, I don't really want anybody. It was terrible. Couldn't stop a nosebleed. It's why they didn't make the playoffs. Yeah. But he is a really solid player, and I think that that's the kind of guy they could get. He's like a veteran, but he's not going to be too expensive.
I think Sheldon Rankin's bringing him back home, or even DJ Jones, the guy with Denver that I think Muji has some experience with that you could look at.
Yeah, I do think that there'll be plenty of guys with Denver ties that are probably going to be brought in. I thought Stidham was interesting, but he just re-signed, so I don't think that that's happening. One thing I would say that we haven't talked about, I know we talked about Garrett Wilson, but we have to talk about some veteran receivers. I mean, Josh Palmer's the popular name. I feel like he could be a reasonable free agent addition. I like Diami Brown. I think he's shown a lot. He's a really speed guy, good compliment to G5. I mean, I would love for them to make like a splash move. They trade for someone that we don't see coming, but unfortunately, I don't know where that's going to happen. But an interesting pass catcher is Dallas Goedert. So apparently the Eagles are shopping him for a 4th-round pick in future drafts. I'd do that in a second. Do that. Sign draft maybe Tyler Warren or somebody in the 2nd round like Elijah Arroyo, and you're really cooking with gas with that tight end room. Like, I think that's worth the swing. I know people will be like, well, why would you want someone the Eagles are moving off of? I don't think that they necessarily want to move off him. I don't think they can pay him because you actually look at it, they just re-up Saquon, they re-up Zach Bond, they're already paying their 2 receivers top dollar, Jalen Hurts, and then obviously a bunch of offensive linemen. Eventually, somebody is going to be left out, and I think this is a good opportunity for Muji to be opportunistic in getting a position of need and someone who's shown that he's a really solid player. I wouldn't call him like an elite tight end, but I would say he's above average for sure.
Yeah, I like that too. And I mean, he's obviously an integral part of that team and a reason that they, were Super Bowl champions. But what scares me about him is the injury history. I feel like he's always banged up. But I'm very intrigued at the idea. I would love for the Jets to bring back Eccles, have him and Stiggers battle it out for your number 2 corner spot. I'd love for the Jets to address interior defensive line in free agency. You get a guy like Poona Ford, you get a guy like DJ Jones or someone like that you can pair next to Quinnen Williams. And I would love to see the Jets go mid-tier free agent at wide receiver in both spots. You get a guy like Tim Patrick, you get a guy like Diami Brown. Those are complementary pieces. Tim Patrick's more of a bigger body, Diami Brown more of a speed guy. You got them at 2-3. You draft Tyler Warren and you get your Dallas Goedert type that's hopefully a little bit more durable. And you funnel the offense through G5, Warren, and Breece Hall. And that's and what you got Fields running the ball too. Like, that's just what I envision. And I think that's a good recipe for a decent amount of success here in 2025. But I'm not open to, I mean, you get a guy, if you have a chance to get a guy like Goddard, I'm not opposed to it at all, right? Like, that's talent at a position of need. Why wouldn't you do it? The one thing that would scare me would just be the injury history.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's so many guys have that. But I just feel like this is a position they just need someone who can, separate. And he's also a capable blocker. I mean, I like Conklin. I'd be happy if they brought him back on a reasonable deal. I know people said it'd be like a 2-year, $12 million, get $6 a year.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. But you have to have another meaningful addition, whether it be another signing and a draft pick. Like, you have to rebuild that room. It's just been not good enough. Yeah. And I think it's hurt this team on offense for years.
I mean, a lot of people talking about Juwan Johnson. You got Evan Ingram out there. It doesn't really excite me. Conklin, Juwan Johnson, Gerald Everett, Mo Alley Cox, Durham Smythe. Like, it's not that sexy of a free agent group. So, like, I get what you're saying, though. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing Conklin back either. I would like to change it up a little bit in that room, though.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Okay, so this just came up across my desk. So Connor Hughes just tweeted, the Jets' interest in Justin Fields is well known. It's up to Fields to decide if he wants the Jets. I returned to Pittsburgh to play with DK Metcalf and George Pickens, and I expect the Jets to turn their attention to Marcus Mariota and Carson Wentz. What are your thoughts on either of those guys?
I mean, I've always been kind of a secret fan of Marcus Mariota. I've always liked him, right? Obviously, I liked him when he was coming out of Oregon, and the Jets had the chance to take him, but they would have had the chance to take him number 2. But I think they beat the Titans late in that season, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Oh God,
yes.
They beat the Titans late in that season, and then and obviously threw themselves out of the number 2 pick. But I've always been a fan of Mariota. Carson Wentz, I just think is washed. He wouldn't excite me at all. I could see Mariota. Yeah. I could get behind Tyrod, Mariota, and a project kid like we talked about, but Carson Wentz, that'd be a tough sell for me. And I think it was Samini that was talking on his podcast, but there was like a minor crossover with Wentz and maybe the Jets' new QB coach somewhere. But either way, I mean, Wentz just he hasn't done anything at all, really. So like, I don't know why that would be exciting for anyone. Mariota, I can at least get behind. He had some starting experience in Atlanta. What was he back up in Washington this past year? It's Jaden Daniels.
Yes, he actually played a lot. I think in one of their last games of the season, and he had a good game against the Cowboys.
So I mean, I would be much more enthused by Mariota, but still, Fields is in a class of his own when you talk about free agent quarterback, in my opinion. Am I right? Am I crazy for that?
You said the best? No,
like he's in a class of his own. Like when I think about the excitement level I would have over the Jets signing a free agent quarterback, it's Fields and then everybody else. Honestly, like. Russ doesn't excite me. Kirk Cousins doesn't really excite me. I'm not going to get like over the moon for Mariota or Wentz. Outside of that, like what else are you looking at, really?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to get Darnold. I think Darnold's going to go potentially to Seattle, or now there's a lot of steam with him going to Pittsburgh. But we'll see. I think you're looking at slim pickings.
No, exactly.
No pun intended for George Pickens, because I know we're talking about the Steelers a bunch.
I mean, Garoppolo, Case Keenum, like these guys just. There was Cooper Rush was getting some love, but I'm
in on him. I'm in on him. Jameis.
I'd take Cooper Rush over Carson Wentz. I'd say that.
Yeah, Carson Wentz. I'd be pretty pissed if they brought him in.
Hell, bring Josh Johnson back. He's a free agent.
Russell Wilson,
39.
One other guy I want to talk about, because he's not somebody that people talk about a lot, but he is a position of need, because it seems like DJ Reed is going to leave the Jets, which. Thank you for his time here. Like, he was a good Jet. Like, I know obviously he's ready to move on, and it's totally fine. You can't pay a cornerback who's about to hit 30, but I want them to really explore Paulson Adebo from the Saints. He's a really good corner. He's 25 years old. His only issue is that he hasn't been able to stay healthy consistently, and he missed a lot of time last year. But I think that's a guy that's worthwhile as a flyer. It's actually similar to DJ Reed when they signed him back in 2022. Like, somebody that showed promise but was injured a lot. And obviously he found this niche, coming to the Jets with Robert Saleh in this defense. I think Glenn, especially because he's coming from New Orleans, he has plenty of ties to that staff. I think that's a guy that they could be a sneaky, addition. I think it'd be a really good compliment to Sauce Gardner and Michael Carter II. What do you think? Know a lot about him or not really? It's okay.
I don't really know much about him. I'm not going to lie. I mean, but I just think that's one of the positions where you'd look to kind of save some coin, right? Like, I just think there's a lot of needs on the defensive side of the ball, especially if we're talking about paying a guy like Holland or Simmons. You're not going to be able to go gangbusters and get like Carlton Davis or Travarius Ward at the other cornerback spot, right? So you look to kind of get somebody that's an up and comer, similar to a DJ Reed type. Which, again, DJ Reed, thank you for your service, great player, teammate. Odd how it ended. Seemed like it got sour like real quick, and was very odd how it like his last few games here. Just weird, but that's neither here nor there. So I don't mind them taking a swing. I kind of see the way that I envision it is I would roll into next season. I'd bring back Eccles, and I would go with Quantez Stiggers and let them kind of battle it out. But if they do choose to go the free agent route, and maybe they bring in this guy and have him battle it out with Stiggers, who knows? Either way, that's. But I think it's interesting, and I think the New Orleans ties, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah. I have the Discord open, just looking if anything's happening as we go. But Mike Silver of The Athletic is reporting that the Jets and Patriots are both expected to make a big push for Carlton Davis in free agency.
Wow.
I'm very interested in that guy. He's a little bit older.
Look at what I just said, and I was wrong.
I just wanted to say that. But I like him. I've always thought he's been a good player for Tampa. Yeah. I think he's a guy that be interesting. He was on was he on the Lions last year? I think he Yeah. Yep. So I think that
played under Glenn. Yeah.
I couldn't remember. So yeah, that could be an interesting one, like one of his guys that he brings over here. So I'm with it. But yeah, I think the Wentz thing, like we said before, is a disaster. I want to talk a little bit about the combine and obviously the draft. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I haven't been as locked into everything that's been going on with the combine and the draft. It's just been busier with things, and I'm owning that. But I really want the Jets to go one of three ways. I think they need to go to defensive line, whether it be edge or even interior, such as Mason Graham. Offensive line, especially if they don't have Moses, I feel like you have to take, someone like maybe Will Campbell, maybe a Membu.
Yep.
But I think, and obviously tight end. I think Warren is such an interesting player. I just think that he can really open up this offense in ways that we haven't seen. He's such a good pass catcher and blocker. And I feel like it's just like deja vu with everything with Brock Bowers last year. Ultimately, I think taking Olu was the right pick because it's just long-term. Having a left tackle is so much more important. I mean, like Brock Bowers was putting numbers on one of the worst teams in the league, but it would have been fun to have a guy doing that for us. So where do you want them to go with the 7th pick based on, guys you've heard them linked to in mock drafts, but also your personal preferences?
Yeah, I think if you asked me this question like a month ago, I would have been all in on Mason Graham. And not to say that I'd be upset by it, but I just interior D-line, I'd rather just have them go that route in free agency. But if that's the way that it does fall, getting Mason Graham at 7, who I think is an all-world talent, like I can't be upset about that. You pair a guy like him next to Quinnen Williams, the interior defensive line is stacked. That opens things up more for guys like Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson on the edge. So I wouldn't be opposed to that, but it's not my favorite thing. I do look at the other positions that you mentioned, right? I look at right tackle. Again, that's one that I'm okay with because I'm never going to have a problem with solidifying the offensive line. Like you need to do it, but I would much rather see them re-sign Morgan Moses, get a guy in, the mid to late rounds that can be your swing tackle, even solidify it more like the two guys I mentioned, Skipper and Pert, in free agency, and focus their attention on pass catcher outside of Garrett Wilson at 7. So that's kind of, I think my 1-2 would be Warren at 7, or if Tet McMillan falls to 7, getting him as a solid number 2. Like I would be over the moon happy with that. I don't foresee them really trading up to get a quarterback. I think if they do, it's going to be Cam Ward, but I really don't see that happening. I don't see Shadur Sanders. I just don't think that they would want that and what comes with Dion here. I'm not, too excited about Shadur Sanders as a quarterback and as a prospect anyway, but I'll always caveat that with, I was also all the way out on Josh Allen too. So what the hell do I know?
Yeah.
And really that's kind of how I see things falling. So I think you got 1A for me, really. I would say just actually clear-cut 1 is Tyler Warren. I think 2 is Tet McMillan. I think 3 would be going OL and solidifying that right tackle spot. And then 4 would be Mason Graham, but I wouldn't be upset with any of those.
Okay.
It's just more how I kind of see like the offseason breaking down and how to fit these like puzzle pieces together, right? With balancing free agency and the draft and what you're going to do. I also like if they reach for like Jackson Dart, I think that's something at 7 that would make me upset. Like if you get him at 42 or you even trade back into the back end of the first round for it, like I can see that, but not at 7. I don't want that to be us. And I know that Spielman has a thing for him. So I'm kind of secretly worried about that.
Like what if he's like our Bo Nix? Yeah, like what if he's like our Bo Nix? I know.
And then great, but I also don't want to get too crazy about Bo Nix too. He had it's one season. Like let's not.
And they got Wallace.
Put him in the Hall of Fame just yet. Yeah, exactly.
They got Wallace in the playoffs.
I know.
I think those are good options, and I'm open to Tet as well.
Yeah.
I just think that he's a little skinnier for a bit, even though he's a big receiver and he can play power forward, but he needs to bulk up for the type of like plays that we need. We already have a skinny receiver in Garrett who's awesome, but we need someone who's more of like a jump ball kind of guy, which he can be. I think I actually want Warren over him. I think that just changes the way they want to probably play on offense. I know they're going to want to run the football, and he helps in that area as well. I just hope that they do take a quarterback at some point. I mean, preferably not at 7. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I like Shadur a lot more than most people. I think that he's just like he had like such bad offensive line at Colorado, and he just showed that he can make plays when everything kind of breaks down. I know obviously he's not like the most physically gifted quarterback in terms of arm strength and athleticism, but I think he processes well, and I'm interested in him. But like you said, I don't think that he wants to play for the Jets, and I don't think the Jets want the whole Dion circus. So I'd be surprised, but he was there at 7 and they did it. I don't think I'd be upset, especially if they didn't get someone like Fields. They basically just running back with Tyrod and someone who's like lesser, like a Mariota, for example.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think I'd probably be a little bit more upset with Shedeur than you are. But again, I've been wrong. And so maybe this is like the offseason where, because historically, especially over the last like few years, for a good chunk of it, like the Jets have done like what the masses have really wanted them to do.
Yeah.
And we've been wrong. So maybe if they go against the grain and do something that's totally different, it ends up working out. And hey, we'll find ourselves back in the playoffs. We can stop talking about this damn 14-year drought.
Yeah, the funny thing is when you say that, I remember when in 2020 when they basically were like saying like all the scouts could like basically have no contact with everybody, and I'm like, maybe this is how they finally get it right that they're not talking to these guys. Turns out that was the worst draft they've had in a long time, so I stand corrected. We have to talk about the fact that the Jets' compensation for the Devontae Adams trade was incorrectly reported. The fact that they have a pick that's like nearly 20 picks higher than what it was initially, that's kind of awesome. Like everybody was going into like this other pick, and now they basically have a 3 top 75 picks. Like it's kind of fun. I'm excited.
It's like a lottery ticket. How the hell did they miss that for this long? It makes no sense at all. It's insane. How many beat writers? Nobody knew. Like it.
But here's the thing. I'm not even going to get on the beat. Like the national people are usually the people who get this comp. And they didn't even get it. Mike Garafolo just randomly was like, "Oh yeah, this is actually an update. It's been incorrect on the NFL's like draft pick list." I'm like, "That's crazy how no one caught this until 4 months after the trade, 5 months after the trade."
So now you're looking at 7, 42, and 73.
Yes.
Right. So I mean that's a hell of a lot better than 7, 40, 42, and 92. Right. I mean I'll take that all day. It's a winning lotto ticket. Let's see what they do with it.
I know. Hopefully they can get some money. But we do have to talk about what happened over the weekend, which you did text me about. I did get dunked on by John Simpson. I'm going to own it. John, big fan of yours. I'll take your word on Irv. I wasn't trying to say that Irv Charles was bad. I just was making a joke that he is always going to be on this roster, and they love him. I don't know why. He's just a special teams player. But John says he's one of one, so I'm going to own my L. And I've got so many people texting me about it, laughing that I got owned by John Simpson on Twitter. So that was fun.
It's awesome. It wasn't like you didn't like we were talking about it before the show. You didn't go all in on Irv Charles or anything. Like you just said, of course there's a roster spot secured for him, but it was funny. I mean, us here at TOJ Badlands, like we like to poke fun at Irv Charles. He's always going to somehow maintain that spot. And even after Brant Boyer goes, he still stays. But it was interesting and it was funny to see John Simpson go after you, but I liked it.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll take it. I took my humble pie. I apologize to him. He didn't respond back, but I did take my humble pie. The funny thing is I kind of think of him similarly to Xavier Gibson. He had that one awesome play against the Broncos where he basically forced a fumble on a punt return, and they returned it for a touchdown. Actually, I don't know if they returned it for a touchdown.
They just, I think they just fell on it, but yeah.
Yeah, but like he's had a lot of penalties. Yeah. Like I'm not gonna lie, but like so it's just like Gibson hit that one play, and everyone always remembers, oh my God, it's amazing. Now everyone's like, Gibson's probably not going to be on the team. But now that Malachi Corley or him isn't the number 2 receiver on the team, they probably will be on the team right now. But let's hope that that's not the case, a week from now after free agency kicks in, because they need some receivers on the team ASAP.
Yeah, I know. We should do a hierarchy of like the Jets that need to go, and like because number one's got to be Clemens, right? Like if I mean, Clemens and Irv Charles would have been on that list, but he's obviously back. So you got.
He's not on that list. I don't care.
It's just.
He's not on the list. I'm not gonna. I have to be nice to him.
I know.
He's just gonna come at me, and I don't want that.
Yeah, Irv Charles, like you said, that Denver play was a big deal because I think it was right after Justin Hardy had gotten hurt, right? So he was filling in for him, and I think it was like his first time running the punt down, and he causes that fumble. The Jets recover and score, and they go up and ultimately win that game, which was great. But after that, it's been to your point, and I don't disagree with you. It's okay. It's not great. He's made plays, had penalties. Like I don't think he's one of one. Like John Simpson is saying, but hey,
I think Hardy was better when Hardy
was better. There's no question Hardy was better.
I know. Like, are people forgetting about that guy? Like I love Hardy.
I know. He was fantastic. He was like Joe Douglas's first signing of free agency in 21, maybe?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. 2021.
Right? Yeah. So, hey.
No, it wasn't him. It was Gerard Davis. Remember? It was around.
Signing.
Yes.
Second signing. Then they broke the news with Corey Davis and Carl Lawson, I think, right?
Yes.
Then that's when chips started to fall, and God, man, Jets off.
Okay.
What a time to be alive.
What a time. It's our Super Bowl, as everybody says. Okay, so we're gonna end with this. Give me a bold prediction that happens this week. It could be a signing, a cut, or a trade. And If you need a second to think about it.
Bold. You're putting me on the spot, man. Is it bold that the Jets extend Garrett Wilson this week?
I mean, yeah.
I think they get it done. I think everything has to tee up for this to happen. Like the DK deal is done. That kind of gives you a barometer. That's a fair price because Garrett is different, right? And I think we've talked about this where you're projecting where he's going to go and you're projecting that he's going to be a top 5 receiver, which we all think he can be. I mean, he's been the Jets' best receiver ever in history already in their first
through their first 3 seasons.
Through their first 3 seasons. Like, there's no question. So I think you pay him, that dollar more, like you said, over DK's money. But I think it just makes too much sense to not get done. I think you are a new regime, warming yourself to the fan base. You've already made the statement. You want to pay and keep good young talent. That's the name of the game. This makes too much sense not to happen. So that's my bold prediction. And I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but I have another one, but I'll stick with G5 gets his extension.
Well, we'll do yours because I want to make sure I don't say the same thing. So what's your
I think they also sign Fields. I think they make a hard push to sign Fields, and I think my dream / realistic scenario starts coming true.
Okay. I like it. I like both those. I hope they both happen.
I hope they do.
So I think that they're going to make a trade for an offensive weapon. Kind of the way they did B Marsh. I feel like it's going to be like the McCagnon splash where they got B Marsh in 2015.
Who could it be?
I mean, Goddard could be interesting. I think that's somebody. But right. I would say that it's somebody that we're not talking about. It could be somebody that becomes available out of nowhere. Because honestly, in this league, you always see guys who get moved and you just don't expect it. DK was a little bit expected just because he requested a trade, but when Tyreek Hill got moved, nobody was expecting that. He had Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, he's being moved to the Jets or the Dolphins." And we're like,
"What a race that was, too!"
I know, man. That was a crazy 4 hours. I remember
that.
I don't know who it's going to be, but I think somebody we will be surprised. I think there will be some sort of interesting move. I think Goddard's an interesting one, but I could see also being a receiver that maybe is undervalued by another team, and they're just ready to move off him. It could be someone who's a little bit older. But I'd have to look to see guys with money, and I'll tweet out this prediction in more detail before 12 o'clock tomorrow.
I'll always be happy with pass catchers. You'll never find me upset about adding a solid pass catcher to the mix. That's going to be good. But okay, I like it though.
You know who could be interesting? Crazy, Jamison Williams. Maybe they're tired of him. Maybe they're tired of him.
Oh,
that would be
that too.
He played with Garrett at Ohio State,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Then, I mean, what does that leave Detroit with?
I mean,
Tim Patrick's gone, just Amon-Ra, and obviously Laporta.
Khalif Raymond, the boy.
Yeah, he was a Jet once, wasn't he?
Yes. 2017.
Yeah. Look at you. Caparoso, number. You're Rain Man. That's pretty good. 2017. I want to fact check you on that, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure. I remember he was a Jet. In my old age, I get worse and worse. I'm turning into my father, but hey,
I know you have a big year coming up in October.
Yeah, I do. It's coming up, man. But yeah, I like that. I do. I think that's like you said. Brandon Marshall. No one saw that coming either, and
had the same thing with Fitz. Same thing with Fitz.
Yeah, best season for a Jets receiver in history. I mean, he was a monster that year. Good God. How awesome is that?
It's one of the best seasons I've ever seen from a Jet my entire life. I mean, Garrett's obviously been the best guy they've ever drafted in terms of having that type of production. But in terms of a guy just having a single season, him and Decker were just freaking awesome. So
yeah. And to know, to think back, they got no production out of the tight ends that year. Kellen Davis had 7 catches. So I think.
And Cumbie?
Yeah. And I don't even know if Cumberland was on the team that year.
No,
but either way, Fitz threw for 31 touchdowns. I think Marshall had 15 and Decker had 12.
Yeah.
So that's 27 touchdowns going to your top 2 wide receivers. That's 4 for everybody else. Bilal Pell had probably had them all. Yeah. And maybe Ivory.
Ivory probably had 1 or 2.
And I remember Kellen Davis. It pissed me off to the millionth degree when they threw that freaking 4th down ball to him against Buffalo on that Thursday night.
Oh, man.
Oh, God. The guy got 7 catches all year, and you're throwing your most important play of what ended up being the season to Kellen freaking Davis. Oh, my God. I know. Anyway, we digress. This is a good one, man. We're on, we're on the verge of free agency. Things are happening. This is our time to shine. This is what we live for as Jets fans. I love it. I'm back.
Yes, we're back. We're back in. It should be an exciting week. So
yes.
Reminder, subscribe to the show on YouTube, youtube.com/@BadlandsTOJ. You get this show, you get clips of Badlands. I'm sure there's some stuff from Streets of Fire, which was phenomenal. If you haven't gotten a chance to listen to it, it's well worth your subscription to Badlands. Make sure you join the Patreon and the Discord. Get that War Room tier, $10 a month. It's premium Jets content. It's the best. We also will be migrating to the Riverside studio for our shows. That'll be coming. This is probably one of our last ones we're going to be doing on StreamYard, so it will be a little bit better. So we are excited about that. Make sure to subscribe to our show on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast. Just search Turn on the Jets Live in there. Give us a 5-star review. Give us a rating. We love that stuff. It really is. It's really appreciated. We appreciate everybody who's tuned in live, whether it be on Twitter or YouTube today. And, a lot's going to happen. I'm sure we'll record again, and we look forward to talking to you guys soon.